Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Living with Challenges. Today, we're going to talk about the challenges that people who live with a disability might face, whether they're an artist or someone working in the industry or attending an event or nightclub. And I would just like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live, and recognise their continuing connection to the land, water and community, and I pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging. So Living with Challenges, for anyone who doesn't know, is just a uni project done by 4 QT students where we're hoping to build awareness and maybe even make a difference for people who might be living with a challenge and facing these issues. So we have Zach McAnally, who runs a successful entertainment and marketing company. You consult and manage some of the best DJs, clubs and festivals in the world, and you're currently based in Bali, working for the world-renowned band Sky Garden Bali as a consultant. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Then we have Nick Reverse. You're an electronic DJ and producer. You're influenced by house music and techno and famed around Sydney and beyond for your high energy behind the decks. You're also the founder of the successful weekly event agency, clothing and music label We Love.
Yeah, that's me.
Hi guys. Then we have Robert Bregenstiel, and your stage name is Taglo, and you've supported artists like Above and Beyond, Cosmic Gate and Dirty South, just to name a few. You have played at many known festivals, most recently Elements Festival and Circus Paradise Festival. And you're a Gold Coast artist who's no amateur, with notable releases on labels like Alter Ego, Skyfall Records, and you've recently signed with the world-renowned Silk Music. You also run an Australian-wide trance event brand called Eden.
Hey.
And then we have Mike Toner, who is the founder and director of Thick as Thieves Touring and Events, which tours over 90 international artists per year, such as Patrick Topping and MK. Additionally, you guys run over 40 events per year, including Techno Fest Luft and many club shows. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
No worries, good to be on board.
So we'll begin with an anonymous story given to us of someone who, living with a disability, was accused of being on drugs when trying to have a night out. So one night last year, he decided to head to the valley after work for knockoff drinks with a colleague and a couple of others. So they started the night at Rick's at around 10 p.m, where they consumed no more than a couple of standard drinks, after which they lined up for entry at the Elephant Hotel, and the security guard there accused them all of being under the influence of MDMA, and thus they were refused entry on the premise with their pupils being dilated. So he says that this was likely the cause of other factors such as prescription medication and the time of day and how much sleep they had had. And when they asked to speak to the manager, he sided with the security guard, and though none of them were under the effects of any illicit drugs, the manager refused to provide any further justification other than agreeing with his security guards. So they eventually decided that it was a lost cause, and later that night they were let in elsewhere. So the person who shared this story just wanted to ask, do you believe that this was a case of ableism? Do you think it was a factor that there was discrimination of disabled people? And if this was happening at one of your shows or events, how do you think you would handle it, or could there be more training done to make these instances not happen?
With the anonymous person, just to give you for a bit more details, so the way how he communicates, he had to look, he got a natural behaviour of looking up, and because he got communication issues with his nervous system and muscle. The security guard misjudged him by him looking up and having that slow, crackling communication. So that's just to give you a bit more detail on the challenges that you have to deal with in regard to communication that you have to deal with from taking his medication to keep him going.
And I also forgot to introduce Will at the start for everyone who's watching this recording. He's a part of this group, one of the group members for Living with Challenges. Was there anyone who wanted to volunteer on answering to that instance?
All right. Well, I was going to say, first of all, I guess there's two ways to look at it. There's obviously, like, to look at it in the first point of view legally. When a security, I did security for 2 years for clubs in Australia when I first started out in the industry. And a security guard has an obligation to keep the venue safe. And they also have an obligation to keep the building owner safe and the person who has the liquor license safe and all these different things. As far as when it got escalated to the manager 99% of the time won't override a security guard purely because the security guard is paid. That's their job. And it's a very tricky one. So you wouldn't normally find a venue manager legally overriding a security guard, because then the venue manager is taking full responsibility and overriding security guard. In saying that, I do think that it's a training issue. I think that in Australia, majority of the training courses for security guards, especially, you're trained to detain people under the intox of alcohol. In Australia, it's illegal to be intoxicated in a club. A lot of people don't understand that. Which is completely broken, but if you are intoxicated in a venue in Australia, you're in theory breaking, I wouldn't say you're breaking the law, but you're breaking the understanding of what the security guard's trained to do. So for them to be able to be trained, a security guard, to not only deal with certain patrons who are under the intoxication, but also have other variables, I guess it's something where they would have to have more money invested into a training program and have a certain different program that you can take on as a security guard. Not all security guards will be going down that path where they have to deal with intoxicated persons or persons with different challenges. So I think that from my own experience, the best way to deal with anybody in a nightlife experience or anything in general is by communication. And in my experience, I've had people who have challenges who haven't been able to communicate to me properly. In my experience, to go and say that someone is on MDMA on the door, it's a pretty big call, unless it's so obvious. It's not something where you can just go and say that this person is on MDMA or this person is intoxicated, unless they are clearly intoxicated on MDMA. So I think that the person who this situation happened to, it's sorry to hear that that's happened to them, because you'd want the nightlife industry in any country, in any location, to be about having fun and going and having a good time and being able to enjoy. Music is what all of us, even on this call, our jobs rely around music and giving a great experience to everybody. I think that it sounds to me like it's definitely a miscommunication, and I don't think it would be bad to reach out to venues when these sort of things happen and see if they are interested in educating their teams or in educating the people around them. I think that's the biggest core issue at the moment, is education. So yeah, I think it's definitely a difficult one to comment on, but yeah, there's those two sides of it that we have to look at.
I just agree with what Zach said. Sometimes security guards, they have a really hard job, and they need to keep an eye of a lot of people. So sometimes they can misunderstand like what is the real fact. But actually some other times, like he said, I think they should just look a little bit more into, their heart, and maybe understand also what's happening. Because, for example, I run events weekly, and I see, for example, sometimes we have people at like just coming to the door, and they are not on drugs, but probably they are just maybe uh, anxious, because maybe their friends was, or they are just particular. They have just particular challenge. Like sometimes we don't know what people have because they try to hide. So I think it's important for them to understand better, instead just say, "Oh, I think you are on drugs," but go like think about a few more stuff. Maybe ask another security, or there is way, instead judge straight away.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely. Did anyone else want to say anything about this topic?
I think Zach answered that really well the first time. He's kind of covered everything. I think it comes down to training
Yeah.
for the security guards, and again, like what Nick said as well. I mean, a lot of the security guards in a really busy environment, if it's like a Friday and Saturday night, they could be dealing with 3 or 4 groups of people at the one time, and it can be quite high pressure for them as well. And most of them are trying to do their best in the situation they're given. Like I guess it all comes down to a training thing.
Yeah.
I was just going to pretty much repeat what Mike said. I was going to say the same thing. It depends on the night. There can be other factors involved. So, like it could be a huge, massive, busy night. There might be people in front of the line who's been kicked out for who knows what, and they might have thought they were with those people or something. So, yeah, but pretty much, what everyone said is pretty spot on. It's a bit of a tough one.
As a lot of you are artists or working in the events industry, how often are you guys thinking about or considering the experiences for people who might be attending the event and living with a disability?
I was going to say, from a point of view of working in Australia and overseas, it's definitely not considered enough. But at the same time, it's definitely like a minority group of patrons that will come in, and it is a business at the end of the day. So to put a ethical and moral not judgment, but an ethical moral decision based on a business decision, I guess it comes down to those 2 factors. A lot of business entrepreneurs and successful business people at the moment, at this present stage, a lot of them are going to neglect things where that aren't going to make money. And unfortunately, in this industry, a lot of the time it comes down to how many people can you fit in the club, how many are going to buy alcohol on the bar, and at the same time not cause problems or issues for your venue. Like that's like the most crucial thing. You have one fight, your dance floor is gone, no one's buying alcohol in the bar. It's such a crucial thing. And so I definitely don't think it's thought of enough. Like over in Bali with Sky Garden, they've got a lift in the club. Every floor is accessible. We got ramp system for everywhere. If someone comes in with a wheelchair, security guards will carry them in, like carry the wheelchair into the club, help them in. And we're watching out for them the whole night. As far as any other person who has some sort of challenge, we definitely keep an eye on them. The club's come a long way in its history, and a lot of clubs will have come a long way in their history. I remember in Australia a long time ago, we used to work, actually Rob and I think Will has been to the club we used to work at called Shuffle nightclub, which was one on the Gold Coast back in the day. And like back then, that was a club with just stairs. But I believe we had a couple of people with wheelchairs and come into the club, and the friends would bring the friends down the stairs, which back then it wasn't something that anybody would think about, was to have a wheelchair access for a club, because no one really saw. I personally, speaking from experience, never saw many wheelchairs in a club. I never saw, and then there's obviously things where people can't see that there's a challenge. that someone has. It's very hard to pick that unless you are around that. It's the same as if, you know, like if you are a roofer and whenever you're driving past people's roofs, you always notice the tiling, the capping, all these sort of things. It's the same sort of thing when you're around these certain things every day, you do pick up on it more. So yeah, I think that would be how I would respond to that.
Yeah, thanks for that. And when I think of Brisbane, the Fortitude Valley, we do have clubs that have lifts, but it's very rare that you see it. A lot of the small gig venues and things, like the Zoo or the Foundry or things like that, where I go to a lot of small gigs, they're just steep stairs that are not accessible. And but as you said, like you it is a business, and if they're thinking about what they're putting their money into, but yeah, it definitely should be.
I would definitely like to see more done
Yeah.
for that community, for sure. Like everyone does. Like we're in this to make a better experience for everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course.
And then there's even the disabilities that are not visible, like epilepsy or autism or things.
Yep.
Have you guys heard of any events or companies that look into catering for those kinds of disabilities?
Not really, like from my side, apart from Will. Like we've got Will in Brisbane. Apart from that, no, I don't really see a lot to really give events for people with disabilities and things. So it's definitely something that's not really looked at too much, and probably maybe needs to be looked at more, I guess. But that's the thing. It's like what Zach was saying, how unfortunately it's a bit of a minority of group, and it's something that we're so busy with everything else, running events and making sure the club's making money and all this other stuff, and we're flat out that it just doesn't come up in our minds until someone says something about it. So yeah, it's definitely like things like Zach said before, things have gotten better. Like I know at Sub Rosa where I work as a manager, like we have steps, but we have like a ramp that we bring out if someone needs to come in and things like that. I know there's a couple of guys who come in with wheelchairs at some of our events. And they get into the crowd and it gives them room and things like that, and have an awesome time. So we definitely try to look after them. But yeah, it's just like, I think for a lot of clubs and event organizers and things, it's not in the forefront of people's minds, and it probably, I guess, needs to do a little bit more. It's getting better, definitely getting better, but yeah, it's still a bit behind.
Yeah, and in regard to what Zach, like other main events, like Rob mentioned, but even though I do agree that with Rob and Zach are saying it's a minority population at the moment, but I've been talking to the Queensland Education Department for my other assignment for this semester, and they telling me that the high schools are overpopulated with disabilities in Queensland. So if you're looking at it from a time scale perspective, it might be a minority now, but maybe in 5 years or 10 years, it'll become a 50-50 minority or majority perspective.
Sure.
I think from someone who like kind of runs like both festivals and club events, we've got probably two different, I guess, trains of thought with it all. So when we're doing festivals now, we have to, like, you're generally looking at like greenside events where you're building everything from scratch, and I feel it's quite a lot easier to cater for the people with disabilities when you're designing the site yourself. Like, you know, we always make sure that our infrastructure has got amenities, and you know, any raised bars or areas include wheelchair and access ramps or small lifts that you can get onto any dance floor. We always make sure that like the toilets have got a larger disabled toilet. They're not being misused by the general public. And that the bars have got dedicated like VIP lines or even lines for disabled people, so they don't have to wait as long and stuff like that there. We use it's not specifically for people with disabilities, but there's a group down here that we pay for our large events called DanceWise, and they provide like chill out areas. For a lot of it's for like punters who are maybe not taking care of themselves enough, but also for people who just want to have time out and go and like, you know, relax somewhere and not be worried about other patrons like being on top of them and stuff. So yeah, they provide like quiet areas and chill out areas for anybody who just wants to get away from it all for a while. That's when you're doing your own site. Then when you're doing club events, as the boys both said earlier, like, you know, a lot of these clubs were designed 25 years ago, and unfortunately, a lot of them are, especially in Melbourne, they're all up or down like steep staircases, you know. But I think the security guards over the last few years have been educated in like helping people where they need help, as opposed to like, you know, relying on their friends to help them up and down. Or and a lot of the green rooms now can be, you know, they're like a lot more people can access the green room if they need to take time out.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Do you often receive any feedback or complaints or comments from people living with a disability, or someone speaking on behalf of someone?
We haven't had any complaints for quite some time, because I think it's something that has evolved for us over a period of years. So we've gradually implemented the steps that I've just outlined before in our planning. Even stuff like having, you know, accessible car parking. So like if somebody's in an Uber and they have a disability, they can get like right up to the front door without having to, like, you know, walk that extra 200 or 300 meters where the Ubers normally drop patrons off. Like we actually wouldn't be able to gain permits for some of the events unless we were meeting some of these criteria. So I think it's something that the industry is actually, you know, especially for doing larger scale events, everybody's kind of worked together to ensure that like that everybody is able to enjoy the experience. You know, that if you've got a disability, that you're not on the back foot at all, you know, for because of that. So yeah, I feel that like over the last few years, there's definitely been a lot of ground made, and for that reason, we haven't really had any complaints. The last kind of complaints we had about anything like that was actually a cultural issue, where there was a guy who was originally Aboriginal descent, had a didgeridoo with him, and a bouncer wouldn't let him in to the venue into the event with it, because he thought it effectively, potentially his argument was it could have been used as a weapon, so we took it off him. And then we had a complaint that that it was effectively like racism. So that was a bit of a different slant, but no, nothing to do with any kind of disability access for quite some time.
Yeah, has anyone else got anything to add to that?
I just want to say something. I think we are lucky because we work with such a beautiful industry, and the music industry is made of really good people. So I think it's hard, for example, to find cases where, you know, there is no respect for someone, or at least for my experience in Sydney. Like I see in clubs here, every time someone walks in and had, you know, like even on the wheelchair or any other kind of disabilities, always I see a lot of people look after this person, and even just the bouncer or the owner. So I think we live in a pretty beautiful reality here, also for this kind of people.
Yeah, I agree. The music industry is very inclusive, and I noticed that especially at festivals and things, everyone is
exactly.
Everyone is happy to include.
No matter what, like from where are you from, or if you high, you told you ugly, you're beautiful, you're still part of this like beautiful thing that is called crowd and music. So
yeah,
I'm really happy with that.
And Nick, sorry to interrupt, Rebecca. When I was in Sydney back in 2018 for Electronic Music Conference, I said hello to the mayor of Sydney at the time, Richard Clover Moore, and we were talking for like 3 hours about disability, risk assessment, venues. She does agree that a lot of entertainment venues around Australia need a lot of help, that a lot of nightlife within Australia need to have its own corporate body to put forward to the federal commissioner and state commissioner to start reducing some of the red tape for the disability, because we do have a lot of red tape against us. that we can't do or what we can do. The Australian government or administration needs to start giving funding support to ease the burden of allowing venues to complete their accessibility risk assessment and also accessibility management plan.
I agree. Like the best way to make any change in a country like Australia is to get funding, because it's a very expensive country and it's very expensive to be able to pull off, as Mike was saying before, like a bespoke event, like for a festival or even just a small event. It takes, like, to be able to add add-ons when you're doing you need in-kind support, you need funding support, you need things that allow you to then expand what you're doing to be able to cater to other variables in your business or your event. So yeah, I think a government initiative would be great if they wanted to look at it serious enough. I think it's hard enough as it is right now in Australia for them to even to look at the majority patrons at the moment and the drug issues where they're going, which in my opinion is a completely backward step. But that's Australia, and they're so far behind, in my opinion, the 8 ball on getting everything going. They need an initiative to really help it, because Australia is so far behind any aspect of we're kind people in Australia, but you go to Europe, you go to America, go to any other places, Australia is so far behind. The government doesn't give the infrastructure to take on a lot of different things that we're having, and you just got to Google it and see it. So I agree with what you're saying, Will. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of thing with, like we were saying earlier, the smaller clubs that don't have a lift or anything, they wouldn't have the money to do that.
No way.
And that's the kind of thing that they need, government funding to help them do this. And that's kind of what we're trying to do, is build awareness, and hopefully more people will realise the problems and understand that's the kind of thing that needs to be done.
That's why it's great having Will on Facebook. Having Will on Facebook always, I see Will's Facebook statuses, and that has influenced me when I'm consulting to other clubs and other events. I always have that in the back of my head, not just about the majority, but also minority, because I have Will. Will educates all of us. I've known Will for, I don't know how long, many, many years. When I used to run schoolies in Australia. Yeah, long time, yeah. And I think we met at schoolies, yeah?
Yeah.
And so just having that has evolved myself. A lot of people in the industry have to get involved with these communities. If you want to learn about something, get involved with it.
Exactly.
If that's what you truly want to say that you're going to be supporting or helping, get involved with it. And then you'll understand exactly how to make that community stronger, better, have a better experience, all those sort of things, for sure. But you need government funding to be able to send people to learn about this, get the education, bring it back, train the team.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you'll know. Yeah.
Now, we do have a couple of questions that people have submitted to ask you guys. We have one that has asked, what contributions, content, or opportunities would you guys like to see from people, kind of leading off what we were just talking about? Like, say if venues or companies had government funding, what kind of things would you like to see done?
See, I don't know, like from my side, for like running clubs and events and things like that, like on top of my head, all I can think about is like security training.
Yeah.
Security trained more on how to read and understand when people have disabilities or they're not just messed up on drugs or intoxicated, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, apart from that, like off the top of my head, I couldn't really think of much. Probably Will be able to tell more of what he thinks would, needed to be added to it.
That would be a good first step anyway.
I think seeing some sort of insurance mandate or some sort of forward step, because this is the biggest problem as well. If you do something sometimes, you're also going to be blamed. This is a problem. Like, you can't just go and be proactive and try to think you're doing the right thing, because you could also be doing the wrong thing. So I think that there needs to be an insurance from the government in place, maybe put some sort of, each club has to have an advocate and the government puts a subsidy towards that. So if the venue has 20% of their patrons have special needs, maybe that's where the government can step in and say, we're going to subsidize a staff or personnel who is trained in this to be in the venue, who has experience with these sort of things, other than a security guard, of course. But that is the only other step that I could see. I mean, we're in an 18+ environment where it is a free-for-all, almost, when you're in a club. There's alcohol, which completely changes a person. We've seen that, you know. People do take drugs. People do silly things in clubs. So I think that if they're going to do it and they want to do that, there has to be an insurance in place so that if you do the wrong thing, you are covered as long as you're doing the right thing. But, you know, you get called for negligence. But these are certain things that have to come in place. If for anything else, because it's so scary to try to do the right thing, like, you don't want to be blamed for doing the wrong thing when you're trying to do the right thing. So, yeah.
I think as well, well said, Zach. And like, I think as well, one of the things that we've experienced a couple of times at the festivals is people who are on medication, who need to take medication, whether it's like injected or in a capsule form, rocking up to a security guard and explaining are clearly that they've got something that they've got to take for their condition, but not having any paperwork with them. And it's like, it can become a bit of an awkward situation sometimes because you don't want to like question someone's what they've got or question their disability or their condition. But the guards are trained that if somebody comes and says, look, I need a safe space to go and inject insulin or whatever it is, that they have to have paperwork to show that they have to have like a prescription for it. And quite a few of the guards I know have been put in the spot quite a few times where somebody's come along saying, I need somewhere to go and do this. And they've asked for the prescription or the paperwork and the patron doesn't have it. And then it becomes this kind of like, you know, you're like the guard's in the wrong because he's asked for what he's been trained to ask for, you know, and he's trying to follow the proper procedure. So maybe I guess a bit more clarity for everybody on what the correct steps and terminology is around that kind of subject.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I like also want to recommend is a lot of people with disabilities have the federal level disability card or raceless for their epilepsy or stroke or seizures. And like Mike was saying earlier about what security guards are doing with 100 people per minute or 100 people per hour, I think there's got to be some sort of boosting of insurance recognition for security guards just to minimize their chances of indirectly discriminating someone or directly discriminating someone or negligent or whatever. The person with challenges can just go off to the art once they get an ID scan to show their disability or bracelet with it at the same time they're seeing them because while they're getting an ID scan and it's got a very structured format that recognize that that person got some sort of inline medical condition. That's another point of view. And the other one is with Melbourne, where Mike lives, they got an organisation, well, two actually, which is Dylan Alcott Foundation and Bandmates Australia, and they focus on the social aspect, which is beautiful because it really does help the Melbourne nightclub scene to identify complex issues and trying to find a better way to allow the person in. And that idea needs to come forward into every state needs to implement it. And at the end of the day with that, it's having some sort of support with that will make your customers more loyal to the venue or more loyal to the brand, and they'll just keep passing it on to other disability communities as well. That's all I have to say.
Well
Good
said.
one.
Well said, Will.
Yeah,
Definitely.
cool. Thanks, Will. We have one more question, which has been given by an audience member. They have just asked if you guys, as artists and event managers, do you have any advice for someone that is living with a challenge and they want to start a career in the entertainment industry?
I would say that there's, if you want something, you go do it. I don't think that anything should limit you from what you can do. Will's a great example of it. You know, Will's had to face challenges in his life, but from where I first met Will to where he is now, you know, like, I'm proud to call him my friend. I think he does such a great job in the industry to educate and to show, like, you know, what is possible. If in any business model, if you want to do something in industry, try to do something that's not being done. Like, if you're so passionate about wanting to come in an industry, find something that's not being tackled, or find something that's not being, you know, taken on yet, and work out how you can work within that situation and do it. Like, yeah, DJing's great fun. I've DJed all around the world. I think that DJing brings smiles, and for an hour and a half, you're the life of the party. It gives you a great feeling. Will's done it as well. Will's DJed all over the place, and does a great job doing it. And you know, I love watching Will play. I mean, I haven't seen you play now for quite a long time, but you did come and play for me, like, what, like 8 years ago, was it? But
Yeah,
you did a great job.
The Hilton Hotel and school is.
Yep. See, you did a great job at that. So, yeah, if it's DJing, if it's event management, learn what you have to do and do it. I don't think anything's impossible. I think if you want to do it, you do it, and you just put your mind to it. You keep working as hard as you can. The more time you spend learning it or doing it, the more successful you're going to be at it. And I don't think there's any challenge in the world. Like, me personally, I'm dyslexic, and not that I don't really go and tell everyone all that sort of stuff, but that's one of the challenges I have. And, you know, I use my iPhone and I use autocorrect now, and I use Siri to say the words. So I found what works for me, so I can get through that. When I'm trying to spell something, or I ask someone for help. So anything's possible. Like, and no one would know that probably everyone knows I have dyslexia, but the main thing is that I worked out how to get around that. And that's all you have to do. Work out how to do that. And yeah, you can achieve anything in this life.
Yeah, I think as well, like, social media, that's like the beauty of social media as well. Some people might not feel comfortable talking to people in person and things like that, and face to face, but that's the whole beauty of being able to chat online and push yourself on social media. Because if you think about it, before this is all around, it was all going out and meeting people face to face and being social in person. And some people, you know, through disabilities and things like that, might struggle to do that sometimes. So use what your tools that we have. Like, the best thing about technology is you got so many options to use. So just use it.
I just want to say it's been great today, guys. Thanks so much for having us on, and it's been great
Likewise.
to connect with other guys as well.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. So that is the end of our first episode of Living with Challenges. Next week, our topic is about festivals. So in a week's time, you can check back on our Facebook page for the next one to be uploaded.
I just want to say thanks for, you know, trying to make the entertainment industry more accepting for everyone. Because at the end of the day, it's only going to make the experience better. So from myself, and I know from all of the other guys on the call, like, that's what we want to do. We're only doing this so we can make a great experience for everybody else. So from myself.
And Will, you're a fucking legend, man. You fly the flag for this stuff. Like, everybody in Australia knows you, so keep doing it,
100%.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for having us.
No worries. Have a good night, guys.
You
Yeah.
too.
Stay safe, guys.
Bye,
Talk to you
guys.
later.